Now, I watched through this entire thing. Before I explain this, I'm talking about Karl Jobst, who lost to the King of Kong, Billy Mitchell, I think last week or the week before, and he was ordered to pay 350,000 Australian in immediate damages, but also court costs. And this was an upsetting thing to many people, not because he lost. It was initially because he lost, because everyone had assumed that the lawsuit was what he had mostly discussed in his videos, that the lawsuit was Billy Mitchell suing him for calling him a cheater in the high score for Donkey Kong that he got that was very contentious. And he's been litigious about in the past. Billy Mitchell had been suing people in the past for saying that he cheated at Donkey Kong. It's been a whole thing for 10 years. Billy Mitchell's super unlikable, kind of smug guy. Definitely like an anti-hero if you do like him. I think that if you like the guy, you probably appreciate the fact that he acts like that. But to normal people, especially because of his litigiousness, people don't find him very palatable. So, considering his litigation history, considering certain threats that Karl Jobst had shown, sorry, Jobst, I forget that he pronounced his name wrong. Karl Jobst showed on stream. It seemed like, and specifically legal threats from Billy Mitchell regarding the information about high score tables, but the evidence was very convincing that he did cheat by submitting an emulated game of Donkey Kong to the high score table, and it seems like he was right. However, when the news dropped that Billy Mitchell had won, these hundreds of thousands of people tuned in to watch a 30-minute long oral summary judgment by the judge presiding over the case in Australia, who explained very clearly and articulately that the lawsuit was about the claim that Jobs had made twice that Billy Mitchell was responsible for the death of Apollo Legend, another speedrun YouTuber. Um, and this was predicated on an assumption that he had made that because Billy Mitchell had sued Apollo Legend, that was the motivating factor for Apollo Legend to take his own life. This is false. This is false, and it's been proven false by every single person who knew anything about Apollo Legend and who was close to them. And Karl was also very wrong about the fact that Apollo Legend had made any kind of monetary consolations to Billy Mitchell. I think that the summary in total was less than $10,000, a lot of money, but not kill yourself over, you know. So the judge found him guilty of defamation for that purpose, not only because, and I should I'll hold that thought actually. So a lot of people saw this and were like, I feel lied to. I feel lied to, in particular because after Karl had received the threats about the Donkey Kong scores, he started a GoFundMe to raise, I think, $200,000 Australian to defend himself in a court of law against Billy Mitchell. But what Billy Mitchell ended up suing him for was the Donkey Kong scores. So even though he didn't, and I hesitate to say this, I don't, he didn't directly mislead people in like a literal legalistic sense. But the fact that his most prominent talking points was about the Donkey Kong scores and not about the Apollo Legend suicide, which he mentioned precisely one time at the end of one video, many people felt misled. And he tries to backtrack that and say, well, I couldn't talk about that, so I didn't, and I focused on what I could talk about, which was the scores. Many people find that this is an insufficient response, and many people still feel that they were intentionally misled. So this response is very bad, and it's not worth playing. I'm just going to play like a minute of it so that you can get a sense of how he talks. You would expect that maybe this video is a little bit more emotional or a little bit more personal, maybe him sitting down in front of the camera to talk about it, but let's see.
On the 1st of April, I lost my lawsuit against Billy Mitchell, and the judge has ordered me to pay $350,000 in damages, plus interest. It goes without saying this is not the result I wanted or expected, and it's honestly quite shocking. Personally, I disagree with the judge's decision, and so I'm currently exploring any potential avenues for appeal. An appeal may stay the judgment on application until the appeal has concluded, which might result in several outcomes.
That is the entire video. That's how most of his videos are. And in this one, he decided that he would play Minecraft footage for 32 minutes while discussing what had happened and his excuses for how he misled people. and I find it extremely unconvincing. I'm sure most other people do as well. I feel like it's completely inappropriate, and I feel like if you're going to do a video like this without showing your face, you should use a static background or anything more grounded than Minecraft footage, because it feels very flippant and that you're not taking it seriously. And I think many people would agree with that. However, while there's nothing in this video that I really want to show you, because I did watch through it and I would have clipped it if I had felt that there's something worth showing, what I want to talk about in regards to this is what is missing. He lies through omission again. In particular, um, first, I mean, the one thing that he says is that the judges flatly got it wrong, which I guess I'm not an Australian legal scholar, so I can't really opine on that. He denies that he did anything wrong, and what he really glosses over is not just that he accused Billy Mitchell of being the main contributing factor to Apollo Legend suicide. He ignores the fact, and this was one of the big points of contention. You might forgive him for not talking about the Apollo Legend suicide thing as a whole, as a part of his case, because he says that it could harm his case if he talked about it. You might be willing to forgive him. But what many people found unforgivable was the fact that Karl Jobst is personal friends with Easy Escape and Dark Viper AU, who are other YouTubers, I think, that do content on speedrunning or video game stuff. And Easy Escape and Dark Viper AU were both directly mentioned in Apollo Legends' suicide note as giving him, I think the exact words were, the final push he really needed. So he directly called them out as giving him the motivation to take his own life. And Karl Jobst was friends with both of them. And for whatever reason, Karl Jobst felt the need to try and deflect the suicide and its fault onto Billy Mitchell, who was his sworn enemy, and that's why it looked so malicious. It's not just that he said something and he got it wrong, and he said something really bad and got it wrong. He said something that he should have known better than, because his two personal friends were implicated in the suicide and Billy Mitchell was not. And he does not even address this. And it's like, if you're gonna be so cowardly to not show your face and do the Minecraft footage of video explaining your situation, it feels like you should at least use that anonymity and that distance between yourself and the apology, or the not even the apology, but the video explaining the situation, to actually address some of the biggest issue that people had with how you handled your legal case. And he just didn't. And it's hard for me to imagine how he's going to recover from this position that he's put himself in, because it loses so much goodwill with everybody. People don't like being lied to. And people are not that stupid. This is a very easy thing to understand. Everyone thought that it was about the Donkey Kong shit. It was not about the Donkey Kong shit. And the real case seems to be closer to home than he wants to admit. So he now has this huge judgment. He's talking about appealing it, and I'm almost certain that if he appeals it, then that's going to be fees on fees. He might manage to avoid paying Billy Mitchell a dime for however many months, or years even, while his appeal is being heard. But I'm almost certain that, because it's the same in the United States, if you are awarded fees and then that person tries to appeal your fees and then they lose that appeal, you get fees on fees. So you owe the money for your lost appeal. I feel like, especially in appeals court in Australia, that he's going to, if he appeals and loses, he's going to owe even more. And it might be double what he currently owes. You know what I mean? Because the appeals process can take as long as the actual trial, because they have to review this birth of information. So it's a lot, and it's very egotistical. And I feel like what Karl is doing, not that I can get into his mind, but because his videos get so many views and his videos are monetized and he has sponsorships and stuff and affiliate links, I feel like he's calculating his legal strategy around the idea that his income will remain stable or mostly the same. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I feel like he's personally irritated his own viewers to such an extent that a lot of them who do follow him strictly because of the Billy Mitchell stuff are going to stop watching. So it's hard to say. You know, the YouTube money machine is a very strange beast. It does what it wants. So maybe he is actually making so much money that he can keep playing games in the Australian court for forever. But if he at all relies on stuff like Patreon, I don't know if he does. He doesn't show anything, so yeah, I don't know. It, it's a risky gamble. It would have been much better to apologize and just move the fuck on, I think. But he's a sore loser, I suppose, and we'll see how it goes. I will definitely talk about this if he does appeal it.
Thank you for watching this clip. This is Perspicacity. Remember to like and subscribe.